In a previous video, we looked at this section where our apps can be accessed, and we learned how to hide them. One thing I may not have shown you is how to put them back into this area. So simply click the Settings tab. You'll see them listed across here. You can right-click and you can show them in the toolbar and they'll be back. Now the issue is that if you wind up using a lot of apps, which is very, very possible, this is not the best way to manage them. They get kind of confusing. They're a little hard to find in a big field. So we'd like to look at an application now that will help you manage them. Great little tool. So let's start by going to the Apps and Web Store. And I'm going to search for something called Apps Launcher. Now, I don't really need to use all these filters, the ratings, the features, etc., because I know the name of the app itself. And when I look in here, Apps Launcher, no. Oh, look at this. It's not an app, it's an extension. Really doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is its functionality and usability. So I'm going to add that to Chrome. It tells me that it's going to be allowed to manage my apps, extensions, and themes, and that's pretty much what I want it to do. So I'll just say OK. And you can see it's now installed up here in the apps bar, even though it's an extension. Okay, when I click on it, you can see that these are apps currently installed. They're really a duplicate of what's right here for the most part. The difference being, you'll notice that this Google Keep is not here, and that's because these are your apps and this is an extension. Okay, so this is a manager for apps, or a launcher for apps. Okay, and of course I could click on any one of these and they would launch for me. I could also search. So if I type in a G, you'll notice it instantly starts filtering out things that begin with G, which in this case are all Google apps. But let's look at some other options for the app launcher. So I'm going to right click and go to Options. The first option I have is to change the width of the box that is displayed when I click on this icon. So let's see what happens if I just bump this up to, say, let's make it big, 600. Now I have to save that change before it'll go into effect. And now when I click on it, wow, you can see that the box is much wider and it has scaled the different icons to use up that space. So that's kind of not what I wanted. What I want to be able to do is see more in this space. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the apps per row option, and let's say 6, because that'll make each one about 100 pixels. I'll save that. Oh, much better. Okay, so now you can see that I would be able to fit a lot more apps in here, because this will expand. If I go to 12, when I go to 13, I'll get another row. So you'll see that this will expand to accommodate the number of apps that I have. And so by playing with a combination of the width and a number per row, which can go up to 8, I can control that. Also, notice that when I make more per row, sometimes it cuts off my text. And so that's a balance that I'm going to have to be comfortable with. As a matter of fact, there's an option in here for app names. So if I don't want to show the names at all, I could uncheck that. And most of these, I'm very familiar with the icon, so that would work for me. But as I get more, it might be easier to actually have the names themselves. If I chose to, I could also disable the search bar. So if that's not something I ever use and I want to save a little bit of room on the screen, I could get rid of that. That's generally up at the top. But I like it for those circumstances when I just can't find it. You know, I'm looking, I know it's in there, I just can't find it. So a quick search allows me to get to it quickly if I know the name. And to tell you the truth, I always like the ability to search something. I think it's a very powerful tool, and I always like it available to me. Okay, there's also the option to choose launcher icon color to match your preference. This is not something I bother with, but you can if you want. You can, if you know things about RGB colors, you can type them in here, or you can simply choose one that's available to you. Oop, I'm sorry. I'll say OK, and I'll say save. And you can see that this is just changed up here to this green color. So I guess that does nothing to the inside, just the icon itself. And I guess that would make sense if you were using themes. I really don't take the time to do that generally, so I just leave it at the default. Other options that are available to you. I'm going to right click. If I go to Apps Launcher, it will simply bring me back to the web store with Apps Launcher open, and it's already added to Chrome, so I can't do that, but I could share, as we looked at before. I could go to reviews and rate it at this point. I could go to my support and see if there's anything in there, or I can give a suggestion, tell a problem, or ask a question through the interface with the developer. Or I could jump back here, and this is probably one of the things I find most useful. If I like it, I can come in here when I have some time, and I can see related apps, maybe things that Google feels are related to Apps Launcher, and that might give me some other tools to do some other things, might be useful to me. Okay, we've looked at options. I can remove it from Chrome from here. I can hide it, but this is probably the last thing I want to hide. This is, I may hide all of this, but this I want access to. And there's also a button to manage extensions. So while the extensions are not going to display in there, it does give me a shortcut to come in here where I can disable an extension, or I can use the garbage can to remove it entirely. Okay, and that really concludes the overview of Apps Launcher. It's a great little tool. I recommend trying it. I recommend using it because it really can, if you're using a lot of apps, it makes things a lot easier.